very, very risky behavior using any type of drug that could potentially overdose you to a point of absolute reckless behavior.
Longer just a rumor. Fentanyl-laced marijuana is now in Tennessee. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation confirms a sample was submitted to its crime lab in Nashville. That sample originated in the Cookeville area. It is the first confirmed instance of fentanyl-laced marijuana here in the state.
That ultra-potent pain med is now a leading killer in the overdose epidemic. We've reported on cases in Tennessee where drug dealers sold cocaine and meth mixed with fentanyl. And 10 News reporter Mark Salinger looks again at the dangers tied to even a few grains of that drug. Mark?
Robin and John, with marijuana legal in more than half the states around the country, TBI agents say the drug is coming into Tennessee at a staggering rate. Now they've seen the first instance of marijuana laced with fentanyl.
We've seen fentanyl in methamphetamine, we've seen fentanyl in marijuana, we've seen fentanyl in just about anything.
For months, it was just a rumor. Now it's confirmed.
Yes. We can.
Fentanyl-laced marijuana is in Tennessee.
It was turned into our Middle Tennessee, our headquarters crime lab, and the sample, my understanding, the sample originated out of the Cookeville, Cumberland County area.
A sample of the laced drug was turned in to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation crime lab within the past 8 months. With thousands of people dying every year in the state, this discovery connects fentanyl with a drug many people use recreationally.
Today's marijuana itself is really dangerous, and then when you top it off and you add something like a fentanyl, it can be really, really dangerous.
Tommy Farmer is the TBI special agent in charge of the drug division and the director of the Tennessee Dangerous Drugs Task Force. He says much of the marijuana we're seeing is brought in from other states where the drug is legal.
We're seeing it shipped in from Oregon, from Washington State, from Colorado, from California, in amounts that are absolutely staggering.
While authorities don't know at what point the fentanyl was added to the marijuana, they do know the drug's power. He says a dose of fentanyl the size of a grain of sugar has the power to kill someone.
And this gram of fentanyl would be more harmful or potential threat than a kilo of heroin.
A small bag the size of a sugar packet has the power to kill 500 people. In recent months, TBI confiscated a 10-kilogram shipment of the drug.
That 10 kilograms of fentanyl would have been enough to kill everybody in Memphis.
And Farmer says doing any drugs is simply like playing Russian roulette. You don't know what they could be laced with and what could be in them. Robin and John.
That is terrifying. Thank you so much, Mark. According to the Knox County District Attorney's Office, 11 people have died this month of a suspected opioid overdose, and 140 have died so far this year. There were 294 suspected OD deaths in all of last year. Online at WBIR.com, we do have a list of resources if you or someone you know is struggling with drug addiction. It includes treatment options, recovery centers, and the Tennessee Red Line. All that at WBIR.com.